In our lives, a lot of us can sit here and say, this country that we call home has changed so much I don't even recognize it. Since when are people killing cops? You know? Since when is the nation so incredibly divided? Since when do people, I know it's been happening for a while, but people burning flags, stepping on them, doing all this. And we can sit here and we can say, our nation has changed. It doesn't feel like it used to. It doesn't feel like the way it used to. And we can sit there and, again, we can, if we allow ourselves, we can have that longing within us to say, I want that back. There's so many times that you find people who say, I wish it was like it was back in the 80s, back in the 70s, the 60s, 50s, whenever your ideal time period was, we can sit there and longingly look back and say, I wish it was like that now. And I wish, and nothing will ever be good again because we won't go back to that. And we can sit there and get into this almost a depression because things have changed so much. They've got metal detectors in schools. Holy cow. All of these things that we sit there and we go, why can't it be like it used to be? Why can't it be the way it was? Now, here's what Daniel could have done, okay? He's had the temple that he worshipped at was ransacked, was destroyed, and all of a sudden now he's stripped from his family, taken away. Daniel could have very easily fallen into such a deep depression, longing to go back home, such homesickness, and that would be natural for a while, but he could have chosen to stay in that state of mind and say, you know what, it's horrible, nothing is ever going to be good again, nothing is going to be right again, all of these things are falling apart. If only I was back in Jerusalem, everything would be right. He could have that kind of mindset, and a lot of times we get that. We wish that things would just go back to the way it was. But here's the reality. For Daniel, Jerusalem was gone. It had been ransacked. A few years after he was taken, it would be burned to the ground. And we've got to realize that the past that we love, while the memories of it might be wonderful and cherished and all of this, it's gone. And you will never thrive if you're constantly looking backwards. You won't. Instead, you've got to look at today, look at the situation you're in, look at the world now and say, for whatever reason, God placed me here now. For a reason. Like, it's so easy to go, oh, I was born in the wrong time period. I should have been born at a different time when things were simpler, when, all of this mess is... And how many of us have said that, right? We wish we were born in a different time period. But the reality is God knew when you were going to be born. In fact, He ordered your days, and He said, yeah, now's a good time for you. God's not surprised by everything that's changed, and you're here for a purpose during this time. Find out what that purpose is and learn to thrive. And that's what we're going to be talking about with all of this. Now, that's not all that's taken from Daniel. As if that's not enough, right? If we had all of that stripped from us, most of us would be in such a deep depression and everything would be so bad. But then they take it one step farther. Let's look at the next portion. It says, the king assigned them a daily portion of the food that the king ate and of the wine that he drank. Now, real quick, just a note on that. The Jews had very specific, and many of them still do, very specific dietary laws. They weren't allowed to eat certain things. They couldn't eat bacon. They couldn't eat catfish. God help them. And there was these certain things that they weren't allowed to consume. And all of a sudden, he's in a foreign king where, guess what? That king doesn't care what your God told you not to eat. I'm going to give you food from my table. Now, most people would be like, food from the king's table? Great. Sounds awesome, except for it might have been poisoned, okay? That's one of the bad parts. But all of a sudden now his identity as a Hebrew is being called into question. It's starting to be taken away from him. just by the food he's being served. So that's why that portion's important, okay? Yeah, because if we don't understand kind of the culture and the history, we might miss that. And that really is a big portion. But let's continue to look. They were educated for 3 years. And at the end of that time, they were to stand before the king. And among these were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah of the tribe of Judah. And we'll hear more about all of these guys, but Daniel's the one we're really focused on. And the chief of the eunuchs gave them names. So not only did they have to start eating the wrong food, now they don't even get to keep their names. Their names get changed. Daniel he called Belteshazzar. Hananiah he called Shadrach. Mishael he called Meshach, and Azariah he called Abednego. Some of those names might ring a bell. We'll talk about their story later. But imagine this, you're about 14 years old. The house of the God that you love and you serve has been ransacked and taken, and all of the wonderful things in there, that's the pride of your nation, the pride of your faith, has been ransacked and taken, and then you get taken away to serve a foreign king with foreign gods in a foreign land, away from your family, away from all that you know, and you go and they begin to strip away your identity. That's what's happening. They come in and they change your name. The name that your mother called you is gone. Now you've got a new name. And these names, okay, like we don't think about this so much today. But back then, your name identified who you were. Like, think about that, okay? It identified who you were. And all of a sudden, your name, which many of their names paid homage to God, the Creator, the God of Israel, and all of these things. And now they're changed to reflect the gods of this new nation. And it's like, so Daniel's religion, his belief system had been stripped and broken. His home had been taken away. And now his identity was taken from him. Down, all the way down to his name was changed. And like it wasn't even that they looked and said, you know, we just don't know what your name is, so we're going to call you this. No, it wasn't that. It was, oh, that's your name? Not anymore. We're going to give you a different name. Because who you were no longer exists. So, belief system was stripped away. Home was stripped away. And now your very identity was stripped. How in the world do you thrive in an environment that is that hostile to just you existing?